All right, for this project, we are going to search some arrays. Now, first off, we, of course, need some arrays. So I need to basically just create a couple of arrays, fill them with some random numbers, and then I need to be able to search those set arrays. So, since I just happen to have my fill array and print array items back here, hopefully you still have these projects. If not, you can always pause and copy it down. I'm just going to copy this fill array method here. Copy. And I'm going to come back to my project I'm working on here, which is search arrays. So I'll just throw the fill array in there, like so. Now, again, if I create my array in the main, then I'll have to pass it like this up here. If I were to make it, a public static int array, I could make it a global variable, and then I wouldn't have to actually have this here. I could just take that out and it'll just use that global variable at the top. But it really depends on how you want to do this. For now, I'm just going to pass it. But that is an option too that you guys are welcome to play with. So first things first, I've got an array. I'm going to create one. Int array equals new int, and we'll just make it, I don't know, 10. Make it nice and neat. And I'm going to randomly fill it with, actually, let's go with 10 numbers. So I'm going to dumb that down a little bit, make it a little more simpler to find. I'm going to fill it, fill array, and that's going to, oh, and I called it fill array. Let's just call it fill. There we go. Fill. And that should fill my array. Now if I want to print it, I should be able to see what's in it. I can just simply just int equals 0, I less than array.length, I plus plus. And I just simply print array I. And we'll take a little check and see just, there we go, 2626 dot, 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 dot. Now you're going to have a couple of repeats in this because it is relatively small usually, but that's okay. Now that I know it's there, now I need to make a method that will search for a particular number in that array. And there's a couple of different ways to approach that as well. So first off, public static. If we want to get that number or that location back, I'd have to make it an int to return that location. If I just want it to print that it found it or something like that, then a void is perfectly acceptable here. I'll call it search int array. I'll pass it. Oh, and I have to also pass it the number I'm looking for. So we'll just call it find. All right, so the simplest way is just to simply make a for loop, which, believe it or not, I've actually got here, and just check each time. If array I got two of these here, is equal to find. Then found plus find at location plus I will tell me where it found that number. Now, the nice thing about this is it will go through the array and find all of them, like every single one. It'll tell you every location that this is at. So if I go down here and just simply say search, let's look for the array and number 5. I'll run it, and it will tell me, oh, there's no 5s, so I'll have to take care of that. We'll try it a couple of times till we find one. There it is, found 5 at location 2, which is that spot there. Boom. Now, if I didn't find one, notice it didn't say anything, like that. I probably want to do a little check in here to make sure I found it. Now, if this was an int and I was returning, or maybe a true false, a Boolean, I return true that I found it, you know, then I could just put return true or return I if I'm just looking for the location, uh, something along the lines of that. But since it's a void, this doesn't return. Now I could break here, and then even if it was in there a couple of times, let's see if I can find one where it's in there a couple of times. There it is. It'll break out and stop after the first instance. Now, depending on what I want to do, I can do it like that and let it stop, or I can let it do all of them. Maybe I just, what if I want it to go through the entire thing, it didn't find it. I didn't want it to specifically say it didn't find it. Well, at the end of this, if I had a break, then I could do this. I could just say, number not found. If I do it this way, though, I'm going to get that number not found no matter what. So if I had a break, I could just break like that, and it would leave this, and the whole thing would be gone. Let's see. Well, let's see if that works, actually. There it is, number not found. Boom. So it couldn't break out. It kept going. The other times, oh, actually, no. It broke out of the loop, but not the whole thing. So even then, this won't help. I'm still going to need a little if to make sure that I found it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a Boolean found equals false. And if I find it, I'm just going to say found equals true. And then if found, I should say if not found, basically that means if found equals false. If, there we go, end if. All right, so basically what we got here is I've got a little variable that tells me if I found it. And this is, of course, just for the voids. If I do it any other way, I probably don't need to do it exactly this way. But I would encourage you to try a couple of different methods of doing this. Ha ha ha, methods. So my for loop goes through my entire array no matter how big it is. It'll tell me where it found it, and it'll set that location to true so I know that I found it at least once. If found, or if not found basically, or if found equals false, or found does not equal true, any of those are basically the same thing as what I wrote here. Whichever one makes more sense, you can use it. I print off number not found. So, number not found. Found at locations 2 and 6, and so forth. So those are a couple of different ways to do a little search through an array. Now this is what's actually called a linear search, meaning that I create my array and I'm going to basically just go down the list from 0 all the way to infinity, however big the array is, until I find the number or until I get to the end, which however I have it programmed. If this is a return, and I'm just returning the location, then instead of found, I would say return, I, and it would stop and it wouldn't do anything else. And I could just have this print statement at the end. But there, like I said, there's a couple of different ways you can do it, and I would encourage you guys to try a couple of other different ways. For example, returning the location is very useful if you're trying to figure out where that item is. But there's a myriad of other ways we can actually do this. And it's just one of those. So I can go down here actually and change my array size, and it will work on that size too. So even if I tweak this a little bit, it'll work regardless, because this doesn't really care about how big it is. It goes to the length. If I set a number in there, 5, then it'll go only 5. And that usually is where people start having some issues early on. They don't use the array.length like you should. If you use that, then I don't have to change a single thing in this program except for maybe my random numbers or something like that. And now it gets a lot more difficult to find probably that 5. Number not found, number not found, unless I make my array bigger too. And then I'll probably find it. There we go. couple of times occasionally. So there you go. There is searching arrays. Hopefully now you kind of get the gist of how this works. I create my array. I fill it with random numbers, in this case 0 through 9, or it could be 0 to 99, depending on how it's written. And I have a little print, which isn't really necessary, and then I search. And the search gives me the array, which again, I could do that and not have to pass it. Gives it the number that I'm looking for. And then I just go through the entire array using pretty much the same loop I've used here and here. Uh, and I just check, is array I equal to what I'm looking for? If it's not, then just go to the next one. Go to the next one. I'm going to keep doing that until I find it. Now, the nice thing about arrays is there's a lot of different ways to deal with them. This is honestly the slowest way. The linear search, where you just start at the beginning and go to the end. It would be like if you're looking down a hallway for somebody, and there's a whole bunch of rooms on either side, and you just go into each room one at a time. Uh, it might take you a while. They could be at the end. They could be at the beginning. You never know. But if it was ordered, or you knew the approximate room number, you could skip a whole bunch, basically, and save yourself some time. But that's a whole nother class altogether. So, if you have any questions about this, from beginning to end, let me know. Otherwise, there you are, search arrays.